edition of the Yonkers Voice. As some of you know, we have been doing a special on domestic violence. How the laws may or may not be gender biased. I'm sitting today with Christopher Johnson, first district councilman of City of Yonkers, just to get a couple of his views on what's going on in his neighborhoods. Chris, what we have right now are real domestic violence issues. Male on female, female on male. What is your view on those who are taking advantage of the system, who know how to abuse the system, and alienate a father, let's say, from his offspring, his child, for all intents and purposes? How do you combat that? What do you tell the citizens of Yonkers, the dads that are sitting in jail labeled deadbeats, who have been taken into various courts, such as the domestic violence courts, or can't afford to pay child support and are labeled deadbeats? These laws, written in by Chuck Schumer and as such. What do you say to those families and those people that are actually taking advantage of the laws? What do we say to the people that really need to take advantage of the laws?
Well, first, I think we always need to remember that the laws that are written to protect each and every individual that is in our society. Men versus women, women versus men, and men versus men, and women versus women. Violence is never okay. It's always unacceptable. And there are other ways to deal with anger, to deal with frustration in a relationship. Of course, I would like to say that there are several organizations, My Sister's Place being one of them. That
now, let me just stop you. We come out with My Sister's Place. Where do I go if I'm a male? Where does a dad go if he's actually a victim? Do dads reach out for help? Where do they reach out for help? What happens when we have a dad who calls for help? The police respond, and as you may or may not know, most police agencies are trained to take the male out handcuffs faster than they do the female. How do we handle these issues as a society? And how do we handle them in your district so that we know that both moms and dads are protected equally?
So the men can call the same organizations, and they're handled differently. Obviously, they don't stay at locations that have the women, because the women are feel a certain way towards men, and they've been threatened, so on and so forth. But what we do need to realize when we look at how the laws are enforced, there was a time where a woman would call and a police officer would show up and laugh because his wife would make similar accusations, or his cousin would have similar accusations against them. So at least we've moved in the direction where police enforcement is taking these situations seriously. However, as you stated, there are situations that go past that initial contact, where men and women are being alienated, are being treated as, like they've gone above and beyond, when the situation may not have been that. It may have been a false call or something of that nature.
So hold on. So what you're telling me is that ultimately, as a male, if I'm abused, and there are all forms of abuse.
Absolutely.
There's not just physical abuse. There's financial, there's emotional, there's verbal abuse. There are several different types of abuses out there that exist, right? And as a male, is it what you're saying that, hey, Dad, call My Sister's Place?
Yes.
And My Sister's Place will take a father,
Yes.
and they have a place to house that father and their child.
Yes.
And they're able to bring them into a safe environment.
Yes.
Okay. Very
Yes.
good. So you heard it from Chris Johnson, where dads who are actually victim step up, get out there, call 911, because if it's not recorded, it never happened. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Call My Sister's Place. Get a place, get out of danger, and always take your child out of harm's way What about the victims who think they're just crazy? You know, I must be going nuts. Does that happen firstly, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Whenever someone is in a relationship where they believe they're in love, they believe that love looks a certain way, they may feel like it's their fault. This is because of me why this situation is happening. And what people in that situation need to understand is it's not your fault. There's never a time where abuse is okay. Whether it's verbal, physical, emotional, financial, abuse is not okay. There are other ways to work out problems, to work out frustrations, to work out issues that you have in a domestic relationship. And being violent and being abusive is not the answer.
Now, one of the we've had several members of the Thread contact us, and one of our biggest issues right now, or one of the issues that are standing out, are immigration issues. Married here in the States, American citizen marries an immigrant. Immigrant becomes a victim of the domestic violence. Do they have rights? If they've never filed for the paperwork, how do we tell you, Chris? Let's just say you're not a United States citizen. You have no rights, and we're going to take your kid from you. Are they covered under any statutes, any laws? Are there anything that protects that father or mother to bring them into the States so that they can live in harmony and eliminate the violence part of this, both male and female?
I can't quote the law, but there are definitely protections for undocumented immigrants who feel like they've been victims of domestic violence and feel like they're lost because they're not citizens and they're not here under legal status. And so what I would encourage you to do is call those same organizations. Feel free to call, to reach out to an elected official's office, because they will help you and they will help you work through the system. What you have to realize, what you have to understand is just because you don't have papers does not mean that you do not have rights. We all have equal protection under the law, whether we are citizens or not. And so we need to follow that. We need to make sure that we stand up for one another.
I'd like to thank you for coming on our show today. One very important thing is this: and if you don't get help, I'd like for you to call your councilman, 1st District, Chris Johnson. And if you wouldn't mind, Chris, give our viewers your information and the territory in which you cover, because I think that a lot of people are missing who their councilman is. Who's my representation? So let's give them your information. Get your information, offer a way to get a hold of you, and we'll go ahead and conclude from there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Once again, my name is Christopher Johnson. I'm the councilman for the 1st District, which covers the downtown area, Warburton Avenue, Riverdale Avenue, Ashburn Avenue. If you live in and around those areas, then I represent you. And you can reach me at 914-377-6311. I'll repeat that, 914-377-6311. Or you can send me an email at christopher.johnson@yonkersny.gov, and your information is confidential.
Reporting to you from the Dolphin Restaurant, Bar and Lounge, I'm Roberto Ferro. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.